Welcome to the Kitsap Publishing Deep Dive podcast with myself, Jack Bennett, and Emily Waters. Join us as we explore books, current events, history, politics, health, and more. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. What if the secret to not just living longer, but living healthier, feeling good, vibrant, and really thriving as you age, wasn't hidden away in some dusty library of medical journals, but was actually accessible, actionable, and profoundly impacted by the choices you make every single day?
That's exactly it. It's a fascinating premise, and it's really at the heart of our deep dive today. We're exploring the world of cellular health, guided by the insights from the book Healthy Cells, Happy You by Dr. Pulisevich.
Right. And our mission here is, well, to go through this source material and pull out the absolute most important nuggets of knowledge, things about how our cells work, why they age, and crucially, what preventative measures give you the biggest bang for your buck in keeping them happy and healthy. We want to give you a clear understanding, without getting totally lost in the weeds.
Exactly. And you might actually be surprised at just how much power you hold over your own body's aging process. It really reaches right down to the microscopic level, impacting those trillions of cells that make you, well, you.
Okay, so let's jump right into the core concept from the source. The fundamental idea seems to be that cellular health isn't just a piece of the puzzle, it's like the key determinant of your biological age, not just how many birthdays you've had, right?
Yeah.
And it's central to preventing early death.
That's absolutely right. The book explains that aging is fundamentally triggered by damage accumulating in the building blocks within our cells over time. Now, some of this damage, sure, it can be random just from living life. But importantly, it's significantly accelerated by certain factors, and these are often factors that are within our control.
And here's where it gets really, really interesting for you listening. The source points to a pretty remarkable statistic. Something like a staggering 75% of chronic diseases and early deaths are linked back to lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
Only about 25% are primarily genetic, although, genetics can certainly give you a predisposition to certain issues.
That statistic is just so powerful, isn't it? It basically means the vast majority of your health trajectory is influenced by your daily habits, what you eat, how much you move, how well you sleep, how you handle stress. The book, it paints a vivid picture, calls it a tsunami of chronic health diseases, leading to people dying way before their time, precisely because of choices that compromise their cellular health.
Okay, so if lifestyle is that crucial, what does the source actually recommend we do about it? It lays out this central framework, right? The 4 pillars of life.
Yes, exactly. These are presented as the natural foundational ways to restore and maintain cellular health.
And those are?
They are proper exercise, proper diet, adequate sleep, and effectively controlling stress levels. The book also adds, importantly, that regular doctor checkups are sort of an essential layer of support alongside these pillars.
Makes sense. Let's kick off with the first pillar then. Proper exercise. The source sounds pretty emphatic on this one. It calls exercise the closest thing we have to an anti-aging pill.
It does.
And even labels it our #1 medicine. Strong words.
Very strong. And that's because exercise directly impacts cellular aging. It helps prevent and even remove these harmful chemical tags that can form on our cells. Engaging in regular exercise, particularly with some intensity, directly improves your biological age, it aids longevity, and definitely boosts your chances of reaching, say, age 100 in pretty sound condition.
Okay. And the book mentions different types: aerobics, strength, flexibility.
Yes, and it puts a really significant spotlight on strength exercise. It's called crucial for cellular rejuvenation, especially because, well, after age 40, we naturally start losing muscle mass.
Right.
About 35% per decade after 30, and it can be up to 50% after age 60. So strength training, it isn't just about building big muscles. It actually boosts muscle and bone tissue, supports healthier cellular functions, and the source considers it the best way to restore cellular DNA and metabolism.
The best way. Wow.
Yeah. The key is resistance, pushing, pulling, pressing an object, and adding more resistance as you get stronger.
And what about cardio? The cardiorespiratory exercise part.
Medium intensity cardio is highly beneficial. You can gauge this through perceived exertion, how hard it feels, or by aiming for a target heart rate zone, generally somewhere between 60–80% of your estimated maximum heart rate.
Okay. And how does all this movement translate into those microscopic changes inside our cells we mentioned earlier?
Well, exercise has a really powerful impact down there. It significantly increases levels of NAD plus HRO, which is a crucial molecule for cellular energy and repair. It also enhances protective proteins called sirtuins.
Sirtuins, right.
And improves the interaction between other important proteins involved in gene regulation, DNA repair, and ultimately longevity.
Wow, so it's really triggering these fundamental biological processes, which means the consequence of not exercising.
Right.
That must be pretty significant, too, based on the source.
Oh, absolutely. It's sobering. Inactivity is linked to dying 8-10 years earlier. The source cites lack of exercise as a main cause of heart disease, which is still the leading cause of early death. It even reinforces this with a quote attributed to Johns Hopkins research: "You either move or die."
Yikes. Okay.
Pretty stark.
It really is a clear reminder of how essential movement is for us.
Definitely. Okay, moving on to the second pillar then, proper diet. The source contrasts how humans historically got energy from natural sources with our modern reliance on processed foods, high sugar, high salt, fried stuff, sugary drinks, the usual suspects.
And this shift has major consequences for our cells. High temperature cooking, like fast food or even BBQ, can create chemicals that damage cellular DNA. And processed foods, they're often called empty calories because the beneficial nutrients are stripped away. They digest super quickly, cause these rapid glucose spikes, and then often get stored as fat. This just fuels inflammation, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer. The list goes on.
And sugar gets a special mention. Oh yeah. The source specifically calls out excess sugar, like fructose and high fructose corn syrup, for driving issues like type 2 diabetes, liver fat, and inflammation. And interestingly, even sugar-free drinks aren't completely in the clear. They're noted as potentially disrupting the gut microbiome and maybe increasing risks for things like osteoporosis.
Huh. Okay, so what should we be eating then, according to the source, to support cellular health?
It highlights several really key dietary components. First up, high-fiber foods, or prebiotics. These are absolutely crucial. They feed our gut microbiome, which is linked to adding years to life and preventing chronic diseases. You've got soluble fibers. They help lower cholesterol, regulate blood sugar, and insoluble fibers found in things like fruits, veggies, whole grains.
And didn't the source make a pretty bold claim about fiber and exercise?
It did, a really remarkable claim. Pairing high-fiber eating with exercise can potentially reverse cellular aging by as much as 60%.
60% reversal, just from fiber and exercise. That's incredible.
It really underscores the power of these relatively simple habits. The source lists good examples like bananas, legumes, leafy greens, whole grains, onions, garlic.
Good stuff. And what about fermented foods? Probiotics.
Yes, probiotics. These contain the beneficial bacteria essential for gut health. Think yogurt, sauerkraut, miso, kefir. Fermentation's been around for thousands of years, right?
Right.
These friendly bacteria contribute to a healthy gut microbiome, which is just fundamental for overall health and keeping inflammation down. The author even shares a personal story about using fermented foods to help with his colitis. The source is clear. A lack of these beneficial microbes significantly harms your health.
Okay. And another critical group mentioned are polyphenols and phytochemicals.
Absolutely. Found in all plants, basically. They're part of the plant's own immune system, and they offer protective benefits to us, too. They can improve our immune system, help prevent cancer, protect brain health, support the heart, reduce inflammation, reduce oxidative stress, that cellular damage we keep talking about.
Could you maybe highlight a couple of the most striking examples? There seem to be a lot.
Sure. Well, the source talks quite a bit about compounds that activate sirtuins, those cellular repair proteins we mentioned with exercise. Things like resveratrol found in grapes, red wine, dark chocolate that gets highlighted.
Okay.
And then there are these compounds called senolytics, like fisetin, quercetin, and apigenin. These are credited with helping remove zombie cells.
Zombie cells.
Yeah, basically damaged cells that just hang around, causing inflammation and problems instead of clearing out. Strawberries are noted as being particularly rich in fisetin.
Wow.
And the source even mentions research suggesting fisetin increased lifespan in mice and humans by over 10%. It links this kind of finding to why the WHO classified aging itself as a disease back in 2018 to really spur more research into interventions like these.
Removing zombie cells with compounds from strawberries. It sounds like science fiction.
Doesn't it? But it's these specific, powerful actions within plants that make eating whole foods so important. The source really emphasizes eating foods with vibrant colors. Beets, carrots, berries, and highlights things like omega-3 fats from fish and nuts, lean proteins, and especially cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and spinach for their huge range of benefits, from gut health to cancer prevention.
Okay, so with all this detail, how can someone practically, navigate the grocery store aisle based on this book? Any key tips?
Number one practical tip: read labels religiously. Aim for packaged goods with less than, say, 10 grams of added sugar and maybe around 2 grams of saturated fat per serving. Definitely avoid hydrogenated oils.
Right.
Focus on whole, unprocessed foods as much as possible. The source suggests tools like the Yuka app for scanning products and points to stores known for maybe having a wider selection of healthier options. Prioritize fruits and veggies, lean proteins, healthy fats like olive oil, fermented dairy like probiotic yogurt, and importantly, choose things like fruit with the pulp.
Why with the pulp?
Because that's where a lot of the fiber and beneficial compounds are. Pulp-removed juices often just give you a big blood sugar spike without the good stuff.
Got it. Now, the source mentions different diet philosophies, but seems to lean towards one in particular.
Yes, it reviews several but strongly advocates for the Mediterranean diet, ranks it number one globally. It cites the emphasis on whole grains, fruits, vegetables, probiotics, and low saturated fat as key reasons why countries following this style tend to have the longest lifespans.
And it contrasts that with the U.S.
It does directly. It links the standard U.S. diet to the country's much lower ranking in global health surveys. It's quite a stark comparison.
Okay, let's maybe tie some of these points together with a couple of the key cellular processes the book really emphasizes. You mentioned NAD+ and sirtuins already.
Right. So think of NAD+ as like the essential energy currency and signaling molecule in your cells. It's crucial for over 500 enzyme reactions, and it also activates those guardian proteins, the sirtuins, that protect your DNA.
But levels drop as we age.
Significantly, over 50% by age 50, according to the source. So boosting NAD+ through exercise, certain foods, things with niacin or tryptophan like chicken, fish, nuts, limiting excessive sun, even heat exposure like saunas. This is a major focus in the source for restoring cellular function.
Makes sense. And the other big one was autophagy, the self-eating process.
Yeah, autophagy, that's basically your cell's natural recycling and housekeeping program. It clears out damaged components. When it's not working well, waste builds up, hinders function, contributes to aging problems.
And certain compounds can boost that.
Exactly. Compounds like spermidine found in things like wheat germ and aged cheese, or fisetin, that strawberry compound again, they can help boost this crucial cleaning process.
Okay, great. Let's move to the third pillar, adequate sleep. This seems like maybe the simplest one, but often the hardest to actually get right.
Absolutely. And it's incredibly important for cellular health, particularly brain health. Deep sleep is specifically when your brain cells repair damage from daily activity and those free radicals we talked about. Your neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers, they also need regeneration during sleep. Lack of sleep literally wears out and weakens your neurons.
Plus the whole stress connection.
Right. Stress, anxiety, depression, they often go hand in hand with poor sleep, creating a really vicious cycle.
So what simple tips does the source offer for actually improving sleep?
A few key ones stand out. Avoid blue light from screens before bed, maybe use blue-blocking glasses. Get plenty of sunlight during the day, that helps regulate your natural sleep-wake cycle. Incorporate melatonin-rich foods, things like almonds, tart cherries.
And supplements are mentioned too.
Yes. The source discusses supplements like melatonin itself, suggesting timed release and starting low magnesium glycinate, because deficiency is a common and linked to poor sleep and inflammation, and also apigenin, found in chamomile, which is noted for improving sleep quality.
Interesting.
Also, consuming slow-digesting proteins like casein before bed is mentioned as potentially helpful. The main takeaway is really prioritizing sleep as a fundamental pillar, not just, a luxury when you can get it.
And the source gives a bit of a caution about traditional sleeping pills.
It does. It notes some research suggesting certain prescription sleeping pills could potentially contribute to brain degeneration over time. And it advises caution with over-the-counter options too, generally emphasizing natural methods as the preferred first approach.
Good to know. Okay, finally, pillar 4, stress management.
Yes, and the source directly links excessive stress to increased oxidative stress, cellular damage, and ultimately shortening lifespan. It estimates it contributes to about 5 years earlier mortality for men and 2 years for women.
Wow, that's significant. Does it give specific techniques?
It actually doesn't provide a lengthy guide on how to manage stress, but its inclusion as a key pillar and its appearance as a factor in the cardiovascular risk test mentioned later really underscores its critical importance to overall cellular health.
So it's more about highlighting that identifying and actively managing stress daily is a crucial choice that impacts your physical well-being, not just your mental state.
Exactly right. And managing stress supports all the other pillars too, doesn't it? It helps you sleep better, make healthier food choices, have the energy for exercise. It's all connected.
Very true. Now, the book also brings up the idea of assessing your own cellular health. It reinforces needing regular professional checkups, but beyond just the main doctor.
Right. Seeing a family doctor to monitor cholesterol, blood pressure, etc. is obviously essential. But it also highlights the importance of dental health. This was interesting. The source notes a potential link between gum tissue health, bacteria getting into the bloodstream, and maybe even the plaque found in brain neurons associated with Alzheimer's.
Really? Gum health and Alzheimer's.
Potentially, yes. That's why it strongly recommends using something like a water pick correctly to really clean under the gum line where bacteria can hide. Regular visits to an optometrist and dermatologist are also advised as part of that preventative picture.
Okay. And then it suggests some simple self-assessments you can do.
Yes, these are presented not as, replacements for a doctor, but as tools for you to gain awareness of your cellular status and track your progress. Things like blood pressure, resting heart rate, grip strength, which is apparently a surprisingly good indicator of overall health that professionals use.
Grip strength.
Yeah. And body composition, especially looking at waist to height or waist to hip ratios. The source really stresses that fat around the waist is particularly harmful because it surrounds your organs and drives inflammation.
So these simple checks give you tangible feedback on how your cells are doing, basically. Let you see the impact of your habits.
Precisely. And there's also a cardiovascular health risk assessment mentioned, developed by Dr. Shirley H. Hazlitt. It evaluates risk based on lifestyle factors you control, diet, exercise, stress, clearly showing how your habits translate into a higher or lower risk score.
Okay, so given all the diet and lifestyle factors, what's the stance on supplements? The source addresses them, but it sounds like with a clear perspective.
Yes, a very clear perspective. The firm advice is always discuss supplements with your doctor first. Always. The source notes the lack of strict FDA regulation for safety and effectiveness compared to pharmaceuticals, and it cautions that some herbal supplements could potentially cause liver damage.
So definitely not a magic bullet or a substitute for good diet.
Absolutely not. The source strongly implies that if you're following the kind of proper diet outlined in the book, you might not need many supplements at all. However, it does acknowledge that factors like, increased modern oxidative stress, maybe lower nutrient levels in some foods today, exposure to harmful substances, these might make some targeted supplementation necessary to support cellular health.
Okay. And what types of supplements does the source suggest might be beneficial, if deemed necessary with a doctor, without getting lost in every single dosage?
It focuses on supplements that support the core cellular functions we've been discussing. Things like liposomal vitamin C for better absorption, omega-3 fish oil for its wide-ranging anti-inflammatory and heart benefits, magnesium glycinate, melatonin, and apigenin mainly for sleep support, and also certain polyphenol complexes containing compounds like NMN, fisetin, and quercetin, which can help boost NAD+ levels and clear out those senescent or zombie cells.
Okay.
The key message, though, is targeted supplementation based on actual need, guided by your diet and professional advice, and definitely looking for quality certifications like USP or NSF markings on the bottle.
Got it. The source also briefly touches on a couple of other factors, like sun exposure and even coffee and tea.
Yeah, moderate sun exposure is seen as beneficial for health, for vitamin D, and even NAD+ production. The key, of course, is avoiding burning. And yes, coffee and tea actually get a positive mention.
Good news for many.
Right. They contain beneficial polyphenols, antioxidants. They're linked to reducing oxidative stress, helping people live longer, and potentially avoiding chronic diseases. Hydration is also noted as important, especially for managing cortisol, the stress hormone.
Okay. Now, the book raises a really interesting, maybe challenging question towards the end. Who is actually to blame for the high rates of chronic health problems and early deaths we see in places like the U.S.? Is it the country, the government, or is it the people themselves?
Yes, and the source presents points on both sides quite impartially. It notes that, compared to some other countries, the U.S. perhaps lacks stronger government regulations on food and drink, things like mandatory front-of-package sugar warnings or limits on advertising unhealthy foods to kids. The argument presented is that this kind of environment leaves consumers struggling to make healthy choices.
Makes sense. And the other side of the coin.
The other side points to the responsibility of individuals based on their own choices. Poor diet, too little exercise, excess weight, unmanaged stress, poor sleep, relying on processed, high-sugar, high-fat foods. The source highlights that while the environment clearly matters, individual choices are still that huge 75% factor we discussed right at the beginning.
So it presents it as a complex issue, acknowledging both, systemic influences and personal responsibility, but without really taking a definitive side itself.
Exactly. It encourages the listener, you, to consider the multifaceted nature of the problem. It's not necessarily a simple either.
Right. Okay, bringing it all together, the book places a really strong emphasis on mindset, on devotion even.
Yes, definitely. Drawing on the author's coaching background, it stresses that truly making lasting lifestyle changes requires, mental programming and real devotion to your goals. There's an example given of an athlete achieving success through visualization combined with consistent practice, illustrating that mental commitment is a powerful tool.
So the message is, you need to actively program your mind, visualize the changes you want, really commit to it.
That's the essence of it. You are, as the source suggests, the master of your own destiny when it comes to applying these principles. Finding a way to mentally commit, to find that devotion, is presented as key to making these healthy habits stick and truly influencing your cellular health long term.
And that circles right back to the idea of self-assessment we talked about earlier, doesn't it?
It does. The source reiterates that it's never too late to start restoring your cellular health naturally. And using those simple self-assessment tools is encouraged as a practical way to monitor your progress and stay motivated on this journey.
Well, this deep dive into healthy cells, happy you, has really driven home the point that while, yes, external factors exist, focusing on those 4 pillars, exercise, diet, sleep, and stress management, gives you profound power. Real power over your biological age and how vibrantly you live your life.
It truly does. It shows that committing to small, sustainable habits can, as one review of the source noted, genuinely add years and, maybe more importantly, add vitality to our lives.
So the final thought for you to ponder. Given how deeply our lifestyle choices, even down to the specific foods we choose or how we handle a stressful day, impact our cellular DNA and our longevity, where in your daily life could you focus just a little more attention starting today to truly honor the trillions of hardworking cells within you?
Thank you for listening to the Kitsap Publishing Deep Dive Podcast. Emily Waters and I will see you in the next episode. Stay tuned.